The New York Rangers were this close to having a 3-0 lead in their Eastern Conference Final Series against the Tampa Bay Lightning. John Chick of Locked On New York Rangers joins us to discuss Game 3 and the series as a whole as we continue our coverage of the Stanley Cup playoffs on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, so glad to be with you here on this Monday as we talk about everything concerning the National Hockey League. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. My pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On New York Rangers, John Chick. John, tough one on Sunday. Rangers up 2-0. Tampa Bay comes back and then gets the game winner with little more than 40 seconds left in the third period. I guess first up, emotionally, how big of a jolt was this for the New York Rangers?
It's tough. Obviously, we were talking for a minute or two off air before we started recording here. And as we were talking about, and as I discussed with you, Gil, during the series against Carolina, I joined you after Game 3 in that one. And the Rangers, they won that game at home, close to within 2-1. As we know, and as hockey fans know, there's just an eternity of difference between being up 2-1 in a series and being up 3-0 in a series. 3-0, you've got a stranglehold. You have a chance to maybe sweep the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. But you got to give credit to Tampa. They've won 2 straight Stanley Cups, and it's not by accident, and it's not just by skill either. It's by, grinding out some tough wins and facing some adversity and coming through it on the other side. And I think you have to give a ton of credit to Tampa coming back in this game and winning it. I think it's a case of Tampa kind of digging down deep and, just finding a way to win a game that they absolutely had to win, more so than the Rangers, giving away a game or doing anything too egregiously wrong. I don't like the fact that they were outshot by about 20. I haven't looked at the final total, but other than that, the Rangers had a bit of a rough third period as well. But other than that, sometimes you just get beat. And again, the Rangers going up against a team that's been the golden standard of this league the past couple of seasons here. And man, it would have been nice to set yourself up for a sweep, but being a Ranger fan, and I think Ranger fans will agree with me on this, it's never easy, man. This team never makes it easy on us. But if I would have told Ranger fans before the season, hey, you know what? We're going to be in the Eastern Conference Final. We're going to be playing Tampa, and we're going to get 2-1. I think just about everybody would sign up for that in 2 seconds. So already looking forward to Game 4, man. Can't wait to see what the Rangers are going to do there.
No doubt Ranger fans would have taken that at the beginning of the season in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
How concerned are you about giving up 51 shots on goal in this game?
Yeah, that's too many, obviously, and it's kind of it's not like the Rangers because they've been one of the best defensive teams in hockey, down the stretch ever since making a couple of trades at the deadline there. They've tightened some things up, brought in some good defensive forwards that have kind of limited shots on goal down the stretch and mostly into the playoffs here, a couple games against Pittsburgh notwithstanding. But yeah, I would imagine they would end up tightening it up a little bit in this next game here. That I would imagine that would be a point of emphasis. And obviously, fingers crossed that Barclay Goodrow is okay. He gutted out the rest of this game here. He had the injury, came back, and he's one of the Rangers' best defensive forwards. And also Ryan Strome. He's not known as being a great defensive forward, but a couple of injuries there and a little concerning. But obviously, you just keep your fingers crossed and you hope that they're ready to go. And again, you hope that the Rangers can tighten things up defensively a little bit. Even if they don't, Igor Shesterkin, he's always going to give you a chance, as he did today, but needs a little bit more support than he got from the Rangers. But by that same token, like I've been saying, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Tampa. They played like a team that was desperate and absolutely needed to win this game.
You mentioned Shesterkin. He got off to a little bit of a slow start in the playoffs, struggled a little bit in the opening round. What changed for him where all of a sudden he seems to be back to being the Igor Shesterkin that carried the Rangers for so much of the regular season?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I know a lot of people like to point at, games 3 and 4 against Pittsburgh. Of course, he got yanked out of both those games. Clearly not banner nights. They're not going to show up on his career highlight reel when it's all said and done. But by that same token, he got pretty much zero help in those 2 games, especially game 4. And since then, I think he's just gone back to being Igor Shesterkin. This guy is cool, calm, and collected. He, like this Ranger team, seems to be at his best when they've got their backs against the wall. I mean, 5-0 in elimination games, that probably doesn't happen without Igor Shesterkin being Igor Shesterkin. And, just again, he's got his confidence back. He's got a little bit of swagger back as well. And I thought he played great in this game too. It's just a case of, Tampa just continuing to pepper him down the stretch. And eventually they got a couple past him, but nothing too concerning there. The first goal, I would imagine maybe he would want that one back, the one that Kucherov scored on the power play. He 5-holed him. By that same token, it's Kucherov, so he's got a nice shot. But no concerns with Igor Shesterkin. I think he'll come back strong in this next game as well. And this was, going into the series, everybody thought this was going to be the goaltending duel to end all goaltending duels, and I think we saw some of that today. Both these goalies were absolutely outstanding, and I would probably look for that to continue moving forward here.
One thing that's always important in the Stanley Cup playoffs is scoring depth. Talk to me about the kid line and their emergence throughout these playoffs.
They've been fantastic. It's great to see because something that I've talked about on my podcast, throughout this season, of course, the Rangers get off to a good start. Nobody's really taking them seriously. They continue to play well. Still nobody takes them seriously. Here we are in the Eastern Conference Finals. I still don't think anybody's really taking them seriously. On and on and on with this stuff. But the thing that I've said on my podcast, a couple of times, and I'll repeat it here for, the national audience, is that when the Rangers go from just being a pretty good team and a team that, maybe could win a playoff series if the chips fall the right way, when they go from that to being a legit bona fide Stanley Cup contender is when one or two, or preferably all three of those kids step up and start to reach their potential. And we're seeing that manifest itself right in front of our very eyes. All three of them have kind of, I don't want to say reached their full potential because I think they're all still developing, but playing better than they ever have before. And that's obviously been huge to the Rangers' success in the playoffs. I think, Kakko and Lafreniere, something that I've said about them when people have been critical of them, I think they're both underrated as defensive forwards. They've made a couple of nice plays throughout the playoffs defensively. And, they both got nice shots. Kakko's a great passer. You've got Lafreniere, just doing his thing and becoming the player that we all knew he would be. And Philip Hedl, this guy might end up with more goals in the postseason than he did in the regular season. These kids just look like they were built for playoff hockey. And, you had that injury to Strome in this game. And, of course, with him leaving the game, you think like, oh man, like what do we do now? And I'm sure there's some temptation to move one of the kids into the second line, but I like the fact that they went with Goodrow there instead because I'm not touching that kid line right now. Everything's working, everything's clicking, and I want to see them just continue to do whatever they can do, as a unit rather than breaking them up.
The first 4 goals of this game all came on the power play, 2 for each team. How important is special teams going to be for the rest of this series?
Absolutely huge. And both these teams are very good, both on the power play and on the penalty kill, throughout the entire regular season for most of the playoffs as well. And, that's a lot of times the way it goes. I didn't see the final tally. I'm pretty sure both teams had the 2 power play goals. And, I've got the box score here too. But, I think, there's a pretty lengthy streak going on right now of the Rangers winning pretty much every game in which they win the special teams battle throughout the playoffs. The last game, maybe notwithstanding, Tampa scored 1 power play goal. The Rangers went 0 for 4. But for the most part, it's absolutely huge. And that Ranger power play unit, especially the top unit, but even the second unit as well, continues to just look absolutely lethal. And we saw that in today's game. We saw Mika Zibanejad. He scored on that one-timer so many times on the power play. Tampa in these last 2 games has been kind of keying on that and trying to take that away, and they still scored on it in this game. And then the second power play goal, Mika, his shot was stopped. He tried to score on the one-timer, but there's Kreider doing what he does and cleaning up the loose change in front of the net. So I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Ranger power play, and hopefully they can keep it going. And I think the PK will bounce back. They did give up the 2 power play goals today, but they have so many good penalty killers. First of all, you got Igor. Secondly, you've got a lot of defensemen you can throw out there and feel good about on the penalty kill. And then beyond that, a lot of good defensive forwards on this team that do a really nice job in the PK, whether it's Barclay Goodrow or Andrew Kopp or Tyler Mott. All these guys are made to kill penalties. So I think the special teams battle is going to be absolutely huge going forward. And I think the Rangers, not a massive edge, but I think they have a slight edge in that department, going forward the rest of this series. I hope so, at least.
Keys to the series, you're up 2-1. What's most important for the Rangers to do from here to win it?
Yeah, I think just kind of having a short memory here. And again, it's not like they played terrible today. I do think they got outplayed a little bit. But just doing what they've done all season, that's been kind of a staple of this team, is their ability to bounce back from a disappointing loss, from a rough loss. And this definitely qualifies. Again, we talked about this before, Gil, but you're up 2-0. You have, in the game, and you've got a chance to go up 3-0 in the series, take a big time stranglehold. It's disappointing to not be able to get that done. But again, I think just kind of having a short memory and frankly, just not really caring about what happened in this game. It's in the books now. There's nothing you can do about it. It's 2-1. again, the Rangers coming into this season, I think you would love to be in this position that they're in here. And to me, again, I mentioned it once earlier, but I think it's just an excellent opportunity for this team. There's no guarantees. And obviously, Tampa is going to come out flying in game 4, you have to think. But it's an excellent opportunity for this team to bounce back from what was a very difficult loss here today. And they've shown all season they have the stuff within them to do that. Whether it's the regular season or, again, the 5 elimination games, they seem to always be at their best when they're coming back from, a disappointing loss.
John, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me at jchick17 on Twitter, and you can find the Locked On New York Rangers podcast wherever you're either listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. We're on every audio platform and YouTube as well. And then you've also got the Twitter handle for the podcast itself, which is at LO_NY_Rangers. And yeah, definitely give us a follow, and we'll have some fun watching the Rangers down the stretch here for sure.
John, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gil. We'll definitely have to look to do this again soon.